I think someone was just in my house. I don't know what to do. I'm honestly still terrified, but hoping I imagined it. I, 18F, live at home with my two parents and my daughter, 2F. I'm on winter break from college and have been picking up more shifts since my mom is off work and willing to watch her, so I have extra money. This is all important because for the past 2 or 3 days I have not been able to go to sleep until 12:01 in the morning because my daughter is awake and won't wake up till 9 a.m. to get ready for an 8-hour shift. It's currently 10:42. I have already texted my boyfriend and don't want to wake up my parents over nothing. I was on my phone watching TikTok with my child in front of me, playing with one of her Christmas gifts. Suddenly, I hear the back door slam shut and what sounds like running water. I get up and sure enough, the back door is unlocked with the outside door wide open and the kitchen sink running. Our house has a basement, so the stairs are in a small room by the kitchen, so it's essentially 2 back doors. I was the last person in the kitchen beforehand. The water was off. I let the dogs in, so the both doors were shut, because the cool air can go through the glass door. We have cats, but none were in the kitchen, and while the living room I am in now, is attached to the kitchen, there is about a 3-foot-tall piece of wood, acting as a gate so my daughter can't get into things like the pet food, the water bowl, trash, litter box, stove, etc. So it could not have been here. I locked all the doors and all the windows on the first and second floor. While upstairs, we only have 2 windows that can be unlocked, and when double-checking, I saw a figure moving in the alley behind our garage. Our garage has motion-activated lights that went off as soon as I stepped into the kitchen, meaning that if someone was inside, they would have triggered it. I'm terrified. I don't want to wake my dad up in case no one is there and I sound crazy. I'm hoping I imagined it or that it's a bunch of coincidences. For instance, the motion lights go off at every cat, rabbit, or even the neighbor's dog. But I had to turn off the sink, and the door I shut was open. I don't know what to do. We have all thought someone was frogging, don't know if I spelled it right, because certain windows will be opened that have no reason to be. Doors will be unlocked, or random things will appear like men's pants that were slightly bigger than my size. They weren't mine, and far too small to be my dad's, because I could fit into them. I'm 5'4", and my dad is over 6 feet tall. I'm lost at what to do. So whoever came into my house and turned on the faucet out of all things, let's not meet. The next time this happens, I'm just going to wake up my dad and tell him I think there is an intruder. But I'm just hoping you guys can tell me things to help me believe it's made up. Update. First of all, apologies if this is the wrong way to update, or if the story does not make much sense. Not only was I terrified, but this was my first post. To acknowledge some messages I got first. 1. The house is old, very old, built in the 1860s. So groans are common, but this was not a groan. 2. The door that slammed was a hard metal door, so there was a noticeable difference between this door and any other door in our house, as they are all wooden. 3. Yes, the TV was on, but similar to the last point, it's a distinctive noise. We were also watching Encanto, and the point it was on was Mirabelle's first song. My parents' room is relatively close to where I was, but their TV was off. Now to address the comments. Yes, I do know I should have instantly woken up my parents or called the cops, but I was so paranoid at first that I completely felt like it would have done nothing, as they would have been gone very quickly. To leave our backyard from the door is probably about 10 steps, and they could have disappeared in the alley. Foot traffic is common as I live in a small town with a decently high drug presence, so people will walk through the alleys to avoid cops, since they rarely drive down them. One person asked about the frogging, so I figured I could go further into detail. We constantly hear what sounds like footsteps when home alone, and even though we have 2 cats and 3 dogs, they cannot go upstairs because of the baby gate that is set up. During the summer, someone also kept messing with the basement door and opening it. The door wasn't a simple knob. It was a weird half door with a broken lock, so you had to literally push the wall away from the door while also pushing the door to get it to open. You had to shut it essentially the same way. Because my dad was remodeling it, he made sure to shut it every time so none of the dogs accidentally stepped on a nail. About twice a week, my dad would come home to it open. So he built a new door with a lock. Only he has the key. And changed the back door lock, which he again is the only one with the key. There was also one day my mom asked me if I had snuck out, because my dad came home and saw one of the window screens missing and out on the roof. He investigated and found that not only was the window unlocked, but also had white dust, which showed hands coming in. To make it worse, it was in my daughter's room. So he immediately put the screen back in and nailed the window shut. I think so, at least. I just know it cannot be opened. Now on to the actual update. About 3 minutes after the post, and probably 8 minutes after the actual event, I realized I was being fucking stupid. If it was just me, I wouldn't have cared, but my daughter changed my life around, and I would do anything to protect her. As I was filling her milk cup, preparing to wake up my dad and be screamed at, I heard faint tapping outside the house on the glass door. I paused before hearing a loud bang on it. I did what anyone would have done and threw my kid's cup on the ground, ran and tripped on the gate, added for the people that thought I was a bad mom for not just immediately getting someone. Kind of my own karma. Grabbed my daughter and ran into my parents' room and yelled, "There's someone outside." My dad woke up and grabbed his gun and checked the outside of the house, while my mom called the police. They did a small check and said they didn't have any proof someone was there. But I don't think I was crazy. I know I heard it. They've been gone for about an hour, but I'm just now updating because my daughter is asleep. She's in my room. I don't have a lock on my door, but I did push a desk in front of it to keep it shut. I don't have to worry about my window because it faces the front of the house where nothing is underneath it. The window is also broken and will not open from the bottom. Thank you to everyone who commented, even if it was calling me a dumbass for being scared. I don't see any more updates, but if something else that's weird happens, I probably will. Even if it's just a small occurrence. Also, if someone could maybe message me and tell me how to properly update it if I did it wrong, I would appreciate it. Have a better night than me, everyone. Update. Hello, everyone. Today was the day of the funeral, and because of the instance of how the person died, the family was still unable to get the body as it's in a murder trial. Because of this, we paid our respects to his parents and left. While leaving, I saw a person resembling my ex from behind, so I just quickly drove away. So I apologize if that's not the dramatic update you hoped for. One of you guys sent me a link to buy cameras, and those will arrive next Thursday. The morning after the incident, though, I retold my mom what happened, and she looked at me horrified. We tried slamming the back door and couldn't get it to perfectly match. We tried our heavy wooden gate, and inside it sounded almost exactly like it, meaning someone was still in our backyard at the least. She also said she noticed the basement had its light on. The door remains locked, but there is a small hole in our bathroom floor you can use to see it. It is off now, and can only be turned on if actually in the basement. So, if it comes back on, I will look at the cameras and double-check, along with just checking at its notifications. I see this being the last update, unless something dramatic happens. Edit. For those confused on the funeral, one of the comments mentioned it could be my baby daddy messing with me, as it's the same house I live in now as I did when we were together. I said he had moved away, but there was a funeral in town of one of our mutual's friends, and there was a possibility he could be there, and I would update on that as well. Moving to the next Reddit story. I walked into a cult or a mafia meeting or drug rig. I can't figure out which. I'm a Chicago Cubs fan, but have lived in the Pittsburgh, PA area all my life. Earlier this season, when the Pirates were in Chicago, I decided to go to a sports bar to watch the game, specifically one I've driven past a bunch but never given a try. Pittsburgh Sports Bar in Castle Shannon. I went in there about 5 to 10 minutes before first pitch, in my Cubs gear, and there was one woman tending the bar, with an old couple sitting at the end of the bar. They both stared at me as I came in, as if I was an alien. Figured it was because I was wearing opposing team's gear. No greeting or anything. I sat myself down and just waited for the game to start, but I realized that the old couple and bartender were deep in conversation, and they were fixated on each other. I walked up to the bar to try and order food. There were no menus, napkins, salt, pepper, anything on the table indicating there was food served there. As I started talking to the bartender, I noticed there was no bottles, taps, or any alcohol behind the bar at all. It was just a bunch of random Pittsburgh sports memorabilia, very random things too. Nothing really followed a theme, as well as a bunch of signs saying things similar to, if you're easily offended, get out, and the like. When I was talking to the bartender, the old couple was just staring at me blankly. She told me she'd be right back out with the menu, and she was in the back room for a good 10 minutes or so before bringing me a menu. Really odd. But I ordered anyway. I ended up getting a pizza slice and a wing and fry basket combo. It was ridiculously cheap. I paid like $6 for all of it. And the pizza slice was massive. There were a dozen huge wings, and the basket of fries was giant. Felt like anywhere else, this would have costed well over $20. The food was done in just a few minutes, and it was brought out to me by the bartender. What's weird is, she went into the kitchen, or what I presume to be the kitchen, to seemingly cook it herself. I got a glimpse of the kitchen when she opened the door, and it was almost completely empty. There were no cooks, no sounds of ovens or fryers or anything. The wings were really, really good. So were the fries. Easily the best wings and fries I've ever had. The pizza was immaculate as well. It was almost too good. As soon as I got my food, more people started coming in. Some very strange individuals too. I was watching the game by this point, but would frequently side-eye and observe what was going on. I was at the table closest to the door, and by the biggest TV, but everyone else that came in sat at the very end of the bar, as far away from me as possible. Them, the old couple, and the bartender just were non-stop talking, and talking very quietly. I could not make out what they were saying. They all looked like statues, never changed facial expressions even when talking, completely straight faces. None of them ever ordered anything at all. It was more like a social than anything. That's weird enough, but some of the other stranger actions I noticed are as follows. There was not a single person wearing any sort of Pittsburgh sports gear. All the most bland, boring outfits imaginable. It was a Saturday, 2 p.m. game. There should have been plenty of Pirates fans watching the game and getting drunk with their buddies, but nope, not one. Whenever the Pirates scored or did anything good, there was not a reaction from anybody. No cheers, no groans. It's like the game wasn't even on. Yet they were all glued to the screens watching it while having these conversations with the bartender. The man from the old couple was the strangest. Every 5 minutes or so, he would walk over to the video slot machine right by my table and put in a $20 bill and bet it all at once, losing every single time. He did this for probably an hour and a half. Towards the end of the game, he proceeded to walk over to the Touch Tunes machine, put in a $20 bill, and put on the strangest, most vintage-sounding dance music I've ever heard. Like, not any big names at all, just very random, like a hole-in-the-wall ice cream social playlist of the most 1930s underground songs possible. For whatever reason, they had it so the Touch Tunes took over the TV audio, so I could no longer hear the game. I guess it was a way to drive me out of there. Finally, after a good half hour or so, the game ended, and the Touch Tunes playlist was still going. It had been about 3 hours since I placed my order. The bartender never came to check in on me, nor give me my check. I went up to ask for the check myself, and she looked a little confused. Before giving me my check, she went over to the group of 5 or 6 people sitting at the end of the bar, said something to them, and they all proceeded to get up and walk out the back door together. She went back to the kitchen, came out a few minutes later with my check, and I paid. I then left. I was already kinda uneasy, and started to feel something was off, and when I left, one of the strange people at the end of the bar was outside the door, and tried to strike up a conversation about Chicago or whatever. But I just mumbled a vague answer, and got in my car, and got out of there. Did I walk in on a cult? A genuine mafia area? Drug ring? Edit. So based on some comments, what seems likely is I walked into the wrong spot, but thought it was the legit Pittsburgh sports bar with good reviews. Since it's a generic name, I could have been directed on maps to another sports bar close by that is actually a front, and just assumed it was the legit Pittsburgh sports bar. Moving to the next Reddit story. One of the scariest moments in my life. I have two stories I wish I could forget, but they'll probably never leave me. I'm almost 30, and it's time to get this off my chest. I was 16, female, at the time, and I used to work occasionally with a family member to earn a bit of pocket money. During breaks, I would secretly go outside to smoke a cigarette. The employees from the neighboring business would come out at the same time. There was this man, around 45 years old, who often smoked at the same time as me. We made small talk about customers, weather, mall gossip, nothing special. One day, he told me he had just moved near my place. He knew where my family lived because they were on good terms. He said he was throwing a housewarming party and had invited everyone from both workplaces, a big party, and told me to come. At that age, I was incredibly naive. I loved going out because I felt deeply lonely and sad, never had a boyfriend, boring life, etc. Any excuse to escape home felt good. So on the day I went, rang the doorbell. He opened, let me in, and immediately locked the door behind me, putting the key in his underwear. I looked around and quickly realized something was wrong. There was no one else there. I asked where everyone was. He said they had already come earlier and left. I reminded him he had said the party started at 2 p.m. He mumbled something about them coming earlier. Great. I soon noticed he was tipsy. We talked for about 5 minutes, then he offered to show me the house, which honestly was very nice. When we reached the bedroom, he said, "Here's your room. Look, you even have a big walk-in closet just for you. I can make more space if you need." In my head, I was like, Error 404. I laughed nervously and said something like, "Haha, yeah, right, you're funny." We went back to the living room, sat down, and then he suddenly jumped on me, trying to, He touched me under clothes, kissed me, removed partially his clothes. I tried to push him away, and luckily he was more drunk than I thought. One big kick was enough to knock him to the floor. Sitting there confused, he said, "I don't understand. You don't want to? All those times you smiled at me, waved to say hello, talked to me while smoking, laughed at my jokes." I felt pure disgust rising inside me. Those words made my stomach turn. His stupidity made me dissociate. I told him I appreciated talking to him at work, but that was it. We were just colleagues. I left it vague because I was afraid he might get angry. That's when he completely lost it. "My ex-wife has the same name as you. She has the same beauty mark, the same mixed origins, the same face, hair, body. You're her twin, in better. When I saw you, I couldn't believe my eyes. You're so beautiful, like a younger, sweeter version of her, that bitch. Anyway, we'll see how we're going to arrange the house for you. Our future children, buying it wasn't the hard part." That's when I knew I was in real danger. Honestly, I saw myself die every time his heavy body leaned toward me. A man twice my size, drunk, psychotic, the full package. At some point he went to the bathroom to pee. With how much alcohol he'd had, it took him a good 10 minutes. He asked me to come with him, lol. I said no, I'm tired. During that time I called one of my coworkers, the man who was responsible for me at work. I explained everything and begged him to get me out. Unfortunately, he wasn't in town. He had trouble believing his friend could do something like this. He told me to try to leave by force, and if it didn't work, he would drive back from his weekend location to come get me. I told him to forget it. My brain was racing at 10,000 kilometers per hour. He told me to stay calm and call the police. I had to hang up because the psycho came out of the bathroom. If you're wondering why I didn't call my parents, it's simple. They would have thought I was stupid for falling into that situation. My parents were the type to hit me for much less. I wanted to avoid that. I tried again to say I needed to leave. That's when he said the sentence that completely broke me. "No, you're not going back. We are going to have so much fun." I was stunned, dissociated, frozen. No reaction at all. He tried several times to sleep with me. Each time I managed to change, distract him, talk about a topic, anything. Pure survival mode. I told myself my only chance was to play along until I find a way out. Late in the evening, I had been trapped there from 2 p.m. until 10 p.m. I pretended I needed clothes and medication. This idiot had planned everything. Old clothes from his ex-wife, aka my twin, apparently. He was getting tired from the alcohol and weed, his eyes closing on the couch. I told him I needed a very specific medication, that I would go get it and come right back. Quick round trip. He made me promise. This dirty kissed me for a long time. I stayed in character, acting sweet, for my life. He opened the door and told me that if I wasn't back by midnight sharp, he would call my mother's boss and get her fired and lie about a situation and then hurt my mom. He watched me until I turned the corner of the street, another glass in hand. After crying all the tears in my body, in a completely broken state, I started walking toward my home. My mother knew I was supposed to be at that housewarming. What if she get hurt because of me, or lose her job? What would I do? That's when, out of nowhere, my guardian angel appeared on a bike. A district thug, to be honest. "Hey, got a cigarette for me?" he asked. I was smoking. Me, crying and shaking? "Yeah, here." "Whoa, why all these tears? What's wrong, kid? Tell me." I told the story, barely able to speak, hyperventilating. But I told him everything. If I don't go back, my mom is going to get in trouble. He stopped and asked to show him the house. I refused to go back, but he convinced me I'd be safe. So we walked a bit, and I showed him exactly where it was. He said, "All right, noted. I've already seen him. You go home, you sleep, and you forget this story, okay?" Me, "But if I don't go back, him, don't even think about it. Forget it all. I'll text you tomorrow morning, okay?" Me, "Okay." I went home. I was terrified, traumatized, but I eventually fell asleep shaking. The next morning around 8 a.m., I received a message from the bike thug. "Everything's fine. I hope you slept well despite everything. Have a nice day." I just answered, "What happened? Thank you so much." He just said, "Wink." The day passed. No news from the psycho. The day after that, I ran into a coworker outside. He said, "Damn, did you hear what happened to X? He just moved in and already moved out in 2 days." I asked how that was possible. He replied, "Some people broke into his place at night and destroyed everything. Absolutely everything, including his teeth. He doesn't have any front teeth left. He could barely talk when he came to pick up his stuff at work." That disgusting predator. I want to thank again my lucky star, the man I never saw again after that night. Real saviors exist. Real men exist. I will be forever grateful. X, let's never meet again. And yes, later I filled a complaint about him, without any news though. Let's move into the next Reddit story. Bumble BFF date gone wrong. Hi guys, I wanted to share a story that happened a little over a year ago. Remember, not to meet strangers from online. I, 24F, moved across the country for the first time. I didn't know anyone, and my line of work is not great for meeting people. I downloaded Bumble BFF as a way to meet friends in my area. I spoke to a few girls, and the first meetup I went to went astonishing well. I decided to give it another go, and met with a girl, let's call her Amber, 22F. Amber and I had spoke over BFF for a few days before we decided to meet up for brunch. We meet at a coffee shop, and I notice as soon as she approaches me that she doesn't look too much like her photos. It wasn't a stark difference, but enough to notice. It seemed like the photos could have been of a sister or cousin, or maybe she is just really good at taking pictures. I didn't mind too much, as this was not a real date, but it was the first red flag. Within moments of meeting, she immediately starts trauma dumping. During the conversation, she mentions how she doesn't drive, and she also has 2 young children. We sit for a while, and it was like I couldn't even get a word in. She was bulldozing the whole conversation. I was trying to think of a way to politely leave, but since she doesn't drive, I felt guilty leaving her alone. I finally tell her I need to hit the ladies' room and get on with the rest of my day. She offers to walk with me to restroom. For context, this coffee shop was at an outdoor outlet mall. We had to walk all the way across the mall to reach the restroom, as it wasn't close. While I'm in the stall, I hear "Mommy," and when I open the stall, she is now holding a toddler. I'm thinking, where did this child just appear from? She seems just as surprised as I do. She introduces her toddler, who then hisses at me. Kids are strange sometimes, but it just added to the weird energy. I wash my hands and exit the bathroom to see a man with a stroller. She exits the bathroom and introduces her boyfriend. He is very unfriendly, and she pressures me to say hello to her baby in the stroller. I hesitantly pull the cover down and say hello. The baby starts crying, and I feel very uncomfortable. I thank her for meeting with me, and I watch her and her boyfriend walk off to their car. I know she did not drive, so I suspected her partner drove her, but she never mentioned they were also at the mall waiting for us to finish, as it had been hours, or how they ended up at the same ladies' room. I figured maybe he had her location on her phone, or how she must have texted her that brunch was ending, although I never saw her on her phone. After I watch them get into the car, I start the trek back to the other end of the mall, when I stop to grab an Auntie Anne's pretzel. I'm waiting in line and get a call from a close friend. I tell her about the strange experience and how her boyfriend appeared out of nowhere, thinking that was the end of it. The man working tells me it will be a few minutes, so I sit down. As I sit down, I see her boyfriend standing in line behind me. I am horribly embarrassed, because although I did not plan on seeing Amber again, it is never my goal to be nasty or hurt anyone's feelings. I make eye contact with him, and between being confused and embarrassed, I decide to leave without getting my pretzel and start heading back towards my car. As I am walking towards my car, I look behind me, and her partner is now deliberately following me. Thoughts are racing through my head. If he had been waiting the whole time, why hadn't he gotten something to eat before? How did he know which area of the mall we were in? Why was he following me? Was he going to confront me if he overheard my conversation on the phone? Every time I look over my shoulder, he is still there. I am now running through the rest of the mall. I tell my friend on the phone if I do not call her back in 5 minutes to call my spouse and the police. I finally get to my car, and I can see him storming through the parking lot after me. I take out of there as quickly as I can. My heart is pounding in my ears. Once I'm about halfway home, I call my friend and let her know I'm okay. I get home, tell my spouse about it, and I decided to delete my Bumble BFF account, as well as block her on Snapchat, which was the only other social media account I had friended her on. A day later, she finds me on Instagram, which I had not given her. She sends me a message that says, "Hey girlie, I had a great time at brunch. We should all hang out again soon." I blocked her on Instagram as well, and thank God I have not heard from her since. I'm not sure what their intentions were. Truly, I don't want to find out. Moving to the next Reddit story. My stalker was convinced he was Gatsby, and I was his Daisy. I, 30 female, had one of the most terrifying stalking experiences 12 years ago. I was 18 and the Great Gatsby movie with Leonardo DiCaprio had been released. Being really young, inexperienced, and very naive about how to remain safe with unwanted attention, I made every mistake in the book with a guy, 23 years at the time, that started stalking me. I had just graduated high school and took a job at a health food store in my downtown area. It was my first customer service job. The owner was a big hippie, easy to work with, and flexible with hours. At first, I worked different shifts, eventually taking the afternoon to close hours. Due to how small the store was, I was alone without other coworkers. Only our owner sporadically dropping by to grab items off the shelf for her personal use, then leave after 30 or so minutes. As a side note, our store was situated next to the building that had subsidized housing for those recently released from incarceration or low income. The evening, nighttime hours were risky for young women to be out without a male escort. Every restaurant in the downtown had staff that escorted girls to their cars, as it was common to be followed, with assaults happening after dark. I was on edge during close, but felt some reassurance as I had parking immediately outside our back exit, a few feet from the door. But I was in the store closing out the register, cleaning, and locking up every night alone. The front of the store was where the cash register was set up, but your back was to the large window that was right next to the sidewalk. The register faced the inside of the store. It wasn't uncommon for me to feel people watching me and catch creepy guys looking at me through the window right behind where I was standing. Again, young and inexperienced, I didn't voice my fears or report the randos that would be a foot away, watching me, only separated by that glass window. I picked up a shift during the summer farmers market in the morning. I was so happy to work in the morning and have a higher flow of customers. One guy, I'll call Cam, came into the store with a brochure for a local event at a spiritual center in the downtown area. I was cordial, smiling, and got permission for us to post it at our register. He was obviously high, nothing crazy, and looked chill. You could tell he was in his own reality. Only talked to him for 5 minutes. I didn't think much of the encounter and moved on with my day. Next shift, Cam comes into the store. He strikes up conversation and was trying to keep my attention. Again, working in the afternoon, when we maybe had 2 or 3 people come in before close, he just hung out right at the register. I was trying to give hints that I needed to focus on work, but he would just follow me around the store while commenting on how gorgeous my legs were and that he thought I had been an angel the last time he saw me. He kept telling me he had a spiritual awakening because I had shown him interest with how nice I was, insisting I was flirting, and that the sun behind my head made my hair glow like a halo. Again, young and not experienced with guys, I was equally creeped out, but also a little flattered because I'd never had that kind of attention. I thanked him for the compliments, didn't call out that they were inappropriate, just made the same excuse that I needed to focus, and walked away. Per usual, he just shadowed me everywhere I went, watching me, but not really talking anymore. I was getting really freaked out. I let him know he was loitering and needed to leave unless he was there to shop. Given how pricey the items were, I figured it would deter him. He ended up using his food stamps to buy 1 soda or piece of candy every hour, maybe $3 spent every hour. He'd make the excuse he was a customer. I went to the bathroom to at least get some privacy. My boss had seen him hanging out in the store before, but never commented. I called her and told her I was getting scared by this guy. Let her know he was making an excuse to stay by buying 1 cheap item and insisting he was a customer through the whole of my shift. I really thought she'd give me support and come to the store. She was a self-proclaimed feminist that espoused consent and boundaries. So I got major whiplashed when she defended his presence. She told me the store was in the red and on the brink of needing to close. Because he was spending any money, I shouldn't try to push him out of the store. I tried arguing he wasn't generating significant income. She just doubled down that money was money, and then insisted I was overthinking it, and Cam was just a kind soul that had found a similar soul bond with me that created positive energy in the store. Just, what the fuck? So roadblock there. All I could do was carry on. The idea of quitting didn't even cross my mind. Being my first job, I was worried it would look bad if I left after only a couple of months. It was really hard to find local positions that were flexible with school hours, and I would be starting my first semester at the local college soon. Things slowly escalated. Cam started bringing me flowers every day. He'd leave long notes confessing his love and insisting we were soulmates. Then he'd randomly play the Great Gatsby soundtrack. He would go on and on telling me that he was Gatsby and I was his Daisy. We were destined to be together, and that my denial of our bond was just like Gatsby's attempts to get Daisy. We were living out the movie, but our ending would be the coming together of souls, wrapped in passion. He had this crazed look in his eyes every time he brought it up. Then he started just calling me Daisy. Anytime another customer would come in, he would get angry and jealous that I quickly ignored him and walked away. He started calling himself my bodyguard and told me it was his duty to beat anyone up that looked at me wrong or made a pass at me that would be a threat to our love. Again, I want to emphasize I was so stupid for not quitting this job or telling anyone about this. It's an understatement that I was a complete dumbfuck for not making police reports, documenting things, creating boundaries, leaving my job, or telling friends, parents, co-workers. For a few weeks he didn't show up. I thought there would finally be a break, or he lost interest. Then he showed back up, told me he was hospitalized. Great. Same routine started all over again. Then one day I get a text from an unknown number. It was Cam. Not only did he get my number from a coworker, who he lied to saying he had a new phone and lost my number, but he did a reverse search and found my address. He didn't have transportation, and I was on the other side of town. We didn't have a bus system, and it was way too far to walk. As far as I know, he never came to my house, but I'm sure he did, and I just wasn't aware. I didn't block his number. Again, I was so dumb. But honestly, I was scared too, because he knew where I lived and was so entrenched in this idea we were bound to each other. I thought things would escalate more. I either ignored his texts or made dumb excuses for not responding. Would be curt. He wouldn't take the hint. When I started my semester at school, it got worse again. He formed a group of friends and told me he'd introduce them. First wanted me to go to his apartment. When I insisted I wouldn't, he brought them to the store. I stupidly thought they were nice people, but they sided with him saying that he was a really nice guy and I should give him a chance. Told me he was just melodramatic and liked playing out fantasies, but he wasn't a bad guy. A few days later, Cam told me he was worried about my safety with the darker evenings. He said he'd have his friends posted outside the front and back of the store to make sure I was safe. And they did. And it was freaky as fuck. Growing up in a household of abuse, I again didn't register the danger of this situation. I was accustomed to bad things happening to me, and was still stuck in a compliance submissive response mode. This behavioral pattern didn't make me fight the setup. They started bringing more deliveries of gifts to me from Cam, and the 5 of them now loitered in the store with Cam during my shifts, each of them buying one thing each hour to remain customers. It was getting too scary. 6 guys in the store, me alone, young female, exits being blocked by them as they insisted they were my bodyguards who would watch the doors. My nightly habit became kicking them out, locking the store, and finishing my work in the dark so they couldn't see me inside, and then stay in the building for 2 hours so they'd go away. It worked for a week. Then one night I stepped out the door, and all of them were either leaned against the wall by the exit door, or leaning on my car, smoking and drinking. Cam came and tried to hug me with his buddies whooping in the background. He stank of alcohol and weed. I honestly thought they were going to grab me and force me to the apartment. I made my car alarm go off, and it scared them enough that I was able to jump in, lock the doors, and floor it out of the parking lot. Didn't give notice, just told the owner I was done. And I still didn't tell anyone about what had happened. Cam kept trying to text me, told me I was denying our destiny and wasn't going to give up on us. I stopped responding. Then I blocked his number. Then he'd get new numbers and text again. His texts got more threatening as I ignored him. I started hearing cars drive by at odd hours of the night, and he would text to let me know he was still my dedicated protector and was making sure I was safe. It was obvious one of his buddies was giving him rides to snoop at my house. All of a sudden, it all stopped. Radio silence. I was so relieved. 6 months went by with nothing. Then, a random phone call from another unknown number. I was in group chats with other students for projects, and thought it was one of them calling me. But it was Cam. He told me he violated his parole and was in jail the last 6 months. He had thought of me every day. I was his daisy, and he was going to come for me. We would finally be together, and he'd prove to me we had an undeniable love. I'd love his dick. He could already feel me riding him and loving it. He'd thought about it every day in jail. I was just pale as a ghost and speechless. All I could think was to fake a story about going abroad for studies in 2 weeks. He started screaming at me for running away from our connection. He'd find me and come after me, no matter where I went. I just hung up the phone, trashed it, and got a new phone with a new number, deleted my Facebook, and finally moved to a large city, an hour away. I had to upend my entire life because of this piece of trash. And I was so inexperienced and naive. I made so many mistakes. I was just glad the worst-case scenarios never played out. and it was a steep learning curve that taught me how to protect myself in the future. That wasn't the last of my weird encounters. One guy at college, who transferred to the larger university from our local college, got a similar fixation on following me on the larger campus. Had a fetish for being stalked. He would find me at the school union and talk about how hot it would be if he found me going through his trash in the middle of the night. Thankfully, it was a huge campus, and I got friends enlisted to watch out for him and let me know where to avoid. But fuck's sake, there are so many creeps out there, and it really sucks being a woman. TLDR, dude became obsessed with me in 2013, convinced he was Gatsby and I was his Daisy. Got a group of 5 of his friends to protect and watch me at the small store I worked at alone. Escalated to them one day surrounding me when I tried leaving work, with dude trying to get handsy. Hardly got away. 6 months radio silence, then call from random number that was dude, who just got back out of jail from parole violation, providing explicit commentary on our reunion he had planned and that I didn't have an option of denying him this time. Faked studying abroad and had to move cities. Enter a second creep at the larger university that had a fetish for being stalked, and stalked me because I was his dream girl that he wanted to find going through his trash in the middle of the night. People as freaky as shit. So guys, what did you think? Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.